Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gwen.
What a blessing to be with you and to be together today. Before we begin, I've been thinking this morning here in the sanctuary about a lot of the times that this church has been through, the different challenges in our country and our world that you all have faced together as a community. And I just want to say out loud what we all know, and that is, historically, we are in the middle of a monumental moment. That when Elwyn and your grandchildren are old enough to wonder about our world and this time of Black Lives Matter and this struggle, however it comes out, will be something about which they say, I wonder what Granddad did. I wonder what Grandma did. And I'm just glad to be about part of a church that intends to do something and tries to do something as we follow Christ. A lot has happened in the last week to make this historic, a verdict that proclaims that killing people of color is wrong. All the while that verdict comes out, more killing happens of both Black people and increased violence against Asian people. And of course, the ongoing struggles that our Native siblings endure. Today, the task force on anti-racism for Apostles Church is leading us in our ongoing mission of becoming anti-racist. As we begin, I want you to know something about our denomination. I want you to know how deeply in our DNA as Presbyterians this work is. Tessa, if you would show first the bulletin cover. In addition to that picture being our guide to what we strive for as Presbyterians, I want to share, as we lead up to our main presentation by the task force and Lisa Simonson, two historic readings from our confession of faith. When someone says, what do you Presbyterians believe? Presbyterians say, well, we're going to write it down. And we have a whole list of confessions that were time sensitive. And I want to share today from two of those. The first is our centering thought. I'm going to read it aloud as you follow along. And then our call to worship. First of all, this is the confession of 1967. I don't need to tell you savvy people what was going on in 1967 in terms of civil rights. Dr. King was killed in 1968. And our call to worship is from the Belhar Confession, and it was written in 1986. And we all know what was going on in terms of war and the challenge to follow Christ in a society that seemed bent on nothing but violence. So let us begin with our centering thought. As I said, I'm going to read it out loud because I want you to know who you are as a Presbyterian and what we have believed. In each time and place, there are particular problems and crises through which God calls the church to act. The church, guided by the Spirit, humbled by its own complicity, and instructed by all attainable knowledge, seeks to discern the will of God and learn how to obey in these concrete situations. The following are particularly urgent at this present time. God has created the peoples of the earth to be one universal family. In God's reconciling love, God overcomes the barriers between sisters and brothers and breaks down every form of discrimination based on racial or ethnic difference, real or imaginary. The church is called to bring all people to receive and uphold one another as persons in all relationships of life, in employment, housing, education, leisure, marriage, family, church, and the exercise of political rights. Therefore, the church labors for the abolition of all racial discrimination and ministers to those who are injured by it. We continue to center ourselves for this worship service with this music from Nancy Wilkerson. Thank you, friend. Now let us join together in this call to worship from the Belhar Confession of 1986. We believe that God has revealed God's self as the one who wishes to bring about justice and true peace among people. That God, in a world full of injustice and enmity, is in a special way the God of the destitute, the poor, and the wronged. That God calls the church to follow in this. For God brings justice to the oppressed and gives bread to the hungry. That God frees the prisoner and restores sight to the blind. That God supports the downtrodden, protects the stranger, helps orphans and widows, and blocks the path of the ungodly. That for God, pure and undefiled religion is to visit the orphans and the widows in their suffering. That God wishes to teach the church to do what is good and to seek the right. That the church must therefore stand by people in any form of suffering and need, which implies, among other things, that the church must witness against and strive against any form of injustice, so that justice may roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. That the church, as the possession of God, must stand where the Lord stands, namely, against injustice and with the wronged. That in following Christ, the church must witness against all the powerful and privileged who selfishly seek their own interest and thus control and harm others. Therefore, we reject any ideology which would legitimate forms of injustice and any doctrine which is unwilling to resist such an ideology in the name of the gospel.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
And now, dear friends, may the peace of Christ be with you and also with you. Let us share in the peace of Christ. Now, special music from Nancy Wilkerson. how elegant and how appropriate for today. Now I would like to call upon Lisa Simonson, who will lead us into this part of our worship. So, Lisa.
Hi. As part of this anti-racism pilgrimage that some of us are on, I recently watched a video, White Savior Racism in the American Church, and it just really struck me, really hit home to me in some parts of it. It's an hour-long video. It has 7 different chapters, and I really wanted to show some of it today. Obviously, I couldn't do the whole thing. I had a very difficult time trying to narrow it down. I hope it's not too long. I did pick 3 different chapters. One thing I do want to say is in that first section, about 2.5 minutes in, Reverend Angela Kabeb, I wrote her name down, so I made sure I said it right, recounts this incident that happened with her husband and 2 young children. And there's some strong and offensive language in there, and I know we may have some children listening or watching today, so I just wanted to give a heads up for that. So, thanks.
There is a popular story of race in the United States that goes something like this.
The United States of America is the land of opportunity, a melting pot where people from all over the world come to live in freedom, to escape repression, to share in the American dream.
This is a familiar story, one we've all heard many times. It is the story of American exceptionalism. This story is about a noble war to end slavery in the United States and extending the right to vote to formerly enslaved peoples, of banding together to win a world war twice. A story of civil rights earned, equality before the law, and equality at the ballot box. This is a story of progress. In this story, there is no organized effort to harm black people by white people.
The truth is, there's no organized effort to harm black people by white people. That doesn't exist here.
See? There is, however, a counter-narrative of our nation's history.
There are these huge gaping holes in what we call U.S. history because it's not told from the perspective of people of color, because it's not written or institutionally affirmed by people of color.
Filling in the gaping holes of U.S. history paints a very different picture of what it means to celebrate the United States. This story includes the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade and the growth of slavery across the English colonies. This story recognizes the resistance to evil among those who were enslaved and the commitment to slavery among white people. This story is characterized by the violence against black and brown bodies and born out of white supremacist theology, racist laws, and cultural oppression. One that celebrates black achievement in the face of such oppression and confronts violence always. White Americans have never needed to tell this other story. The narrative of white supremacy makes it possible to see only the story of progress.
I think white folks don't need to imagine it, or thought they didn't. If you're not thinking about black folks 24/7, and by black I mean people of color. You can spare yourself. You can read books, you can watch TV shows, but at the end of the day, you can go back to being white and be spared.
When I served in rural Ohio, we were the only black family in the town that we lived in. And it was about as challenging as you can imagine. I just had another baby. That was our youngest. So I'm at home and getting ready to nurse. And Benny wants to go for a walk. My husband goes for a walk, takes the 2 other kids in the double stroller. And as he's going for a walk, he comes right back. I mean, just a matter of 2 minutes, he's right back home. And I said, what happened? And he said, this parishioner, he said, he just tried to kill us. I said, what are you talking about? You know, I'm thinking he's exaggerating. He said he tried to run us over. He drove up onto the curve and he said, it was right after President Obama was reelected. He said, that fucking nigger president is trying to ruin my country, and I'm gonna run you fucking niggers out of this town. And proceeded to drive up onto the curve to kill my husband and our 2 small children.
The American mistake is believing that we are exceptional and different. This is a country that's built on the genocide of indigenous people, that an entire economy is built on the black backs of people who've never been given reparations, and has continued to reinforce those racist structures and systems for its own benefit. And that fault line runs through the entire American experience. This has always been who America is.
It's easy to think that the story of violence against black bodies belongs to the country's past. But white supremacy is still on the march, enabled by the lack of understanding of how society reinforces racial prejudice across legal, educational, professional, and social metrics. Racist systems are failing black Americans. One example is home ownership, the centerpiece of the American dream.
What we understand and what historically we can see with African Americans is that the way that you become a citizen is through ownership. Because what happens when you own a home? You have say not only of your own domicile, but then you get to be a part of a community, right, that can take political action.
The benefits of home ownership in the U.S. are enormous, from tax breaks and credit benefits to building equity and passing it to our descendants. These benefits have been systematically denied to a majority of black Americans. In the 1930s, as part of the New Deal, loan programs were created to help Americans purchase homes. In order to determine who received a loan, the government created color-coded maps where green neighborhoods indicated low risk and red neighborhoods were high risk. This practice, now known as redlining, heavily favored white communities.
Home ownership for African Americans has been racially contested because of the ways in which the federal government colluded with mortgage companies to redline and to blockbust African American neighborhoods. Neighborhoods that were predominantly African American were automatically deemed high risk, which meant they were less likely to get loans to purchase, right?
Right after World War II, we had this huge endowment or investment in the suburbs that came from the Federal Housing Authority. Of the $120 billion that was invested in suburban housing, less than 2% of that went to non-white families.
This is Levittown, Pennsylvania, a new suburban community of 60,000 people midway between Philadelphia and Trenton, New Jersey. With its giant shopping center, winding lanes named for flowers and trees, it is fairly typical of communities all over America, where families are pursuing the American dream to give their children a better chance in life. Why did you select Levittown to live?
We were looking for a place to buy a home. We looked at Levittown, and we liked the homes here. We liked the advantages that Levittown seemed to offer in comparison to other cities. And we understood that it was going to be all white, and we were very happy to buy a home here.
In the 19th century, the U.S. government claimed that people of African descent were property. In the 20th century, the same government worked to ensure black Americans couldn't own property. Predatory and biased lending practices have been exposed over and over in the United States, revealing a continuing systemic effort to withhold economic benefits from black families that are readily available to white families. So what is a white homeowner to do? Give up their home?
We're not asking you to sell your home. We're not asking you to even move, but we're asking you to think about the structures that we all implicitly buy into that create and replicate inequality, and how we can think about dismantling those.
The answer to the problem is eventually when you find that there are no more areas to which a white person can move without having a Negro family in. Well, that would be the best end that there could be to segregation. And it is probably something that will happen in the future, perhaps in the near future.
In the late 1700s, Richard Allen, a formerly enslaved devout Methodist and lay minister, accepted an invitation to preach at St. George's Church in Philadelphia. Allen's preaching was very popular, causing a rapid growth of black membership. Soon the church had outgrown its seating capacity. But when Allen requested the church create a second congregation for black people, the white elders refused. Instead, they built a balcony to segregate black members from white members. In 1792, a fellow lay minister, Absalom Jones, challenged this division by sitting downstairs. He was then physically removed during the opening prayer. In response, Richard Allen led the entire black membership out of the building. Later, Allen said of the incident, "We all went out of the church in a body, and they were no longer plagued by us." Allen and Jones each went on to lead their own black congregations. Reverend Allen would eventually form a new denomination, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the first independent denomination founded by black people in the U.S. Even after the Civil War and the end of slavery, the divide between the white church and the black church remained wide and kept getting wider. In the early 20th century, facing rampant inequality, voter suppression, persecution, and violence, droves of black families moved out of the rural southern United States into urban areas of the Northeast, Midwest, and West in what is called the Great Migration.
Millions of black people left and sometimes had to escape from the South because of the horrid conditions there, and they came north for better opportunity, for better jobs, for better education. It changed the landscape of America.
In 1890, around 90% of black people in the U.S. lived in southern states. Over the next 80 years, nearly 50% would leave the South in an exodus of over 6 million people. The growth of black populations in historically white communities led to another kind of migration.
What we know that happened during the Great Migration is this mass group of African Americans moving into these urban places creates housing problems. And so instead of many cities firmly addressing these housing problems, what typically happens is overcrowding. In conjunction with overcrowding, what happens is that white folks also are leaving neighborhoods.
And that's when you see the growth of the megachurches in the suburbs, because a lot of the churches in the cities were being abandoned by white Protestants, moved to the suburbs, and created kind of these communities in the suburbs that are white, middle, upper middle class communities, as well as white, middle, upper middle class churches. And many of the urban centers became places where ethnic minority churches were started.
Despite the progress of the civil rights movement, school desegregation, and policies like affirmative action, Christian communities have remained highly segregated. As of 2014, nearly 80% of Christians attend churches where they are among the overwhelming racial majority. Unlike most large U.S. institutions, the church is not required by law to integrate. Congregations are made of individuals who intentionally choose to come together, which means a majority of Christians are choosing segregation, making church possibly the most telling measure of where race relations in the United States actually stands. Even well-meaning white congregations who might want to reflect the full diversity of the U.S. population struggle with the reality that their theology and practices are immersed in white cultural norms that alienate people of color.
Our liturgy is constructed a certain way that feeds and fills white Christians. The way that we choreograph our movement around the sanctuary is also very white and very European. The way that we talk, how we keep things under 12 minutes in our sermons, how we sing 3 verses of a hymn, how the hymns always have to be played from the organ or from the piano. Those are constructs that make perfect sense in our mind as being worshipful, but at the same time are excluding.
Why are we singing songs by Germans? Why don't they include any songs from authors and composers that are not white? Who decides that this is the way that we should worship and this is the way that we should do things?
I remember sitting there when the service was over and thinking, I came in, I sat down, I was prayed over, I was sang to, I was preached at, and I was dismissed. For me, there was no spiritual component to the worship service, and I thought it was very sterile.
Black churches, on the other hand, often focus on Christ as a source of hope and rescue in the face of ongoing oppression, a theology shaped by the history and experience of Black lives in America.
When I have to be able to rise above the pain of the cuts that I receive on a daily basis, when I just need to let go and let God, connecting with people on a much deeper level because of the pain that we have experienced together. It's different than what I could imagine a life where I have everything that I need. I'm not suffering at all. It's just different. It's a different place.
Can Black and white Christianity find common ground? Can the chasm between us, created by racism and white supremacy, be overcome?
There's not enough diversity in our congregations, in our denomination, because we refuse to make space for that diversity.
And so when they talk about racial reconciliation, they don't really want their congregation body to change. They don't really want 50-50 white and people of color. Maybe one or two. Because I think people are comfortable where they're at.
When congregations become multiracial, you will often see a group of white people leave the church. And it's either a fear of change, a fear of doing things differently, fear of losing power.
Richard Allen and Absalom Jones left St. George's Church because it was not in fact their church, but a white church they were being allowed to attend. The persistent segregation of churches today raises the question, how much has really changed?
Baptize me, John.
I think it's very hard for us to grasp the depths of the racism inherent inside of our own church. 10 years ago when I was here, if you were to walk into the sanctuary, front and center at the top of the chancel would be this gorgeous painting of a Norwegian Jesus. And it was beautiful and it was inspiring, but anytime anyone who didn't look Norwegian looked at that painting, they never came back. And we all scratched our heads wondering why.
I see a white Jesus, that's telling me that whiteness is good, whiteness is holiness, and that even the creator, the savior of the world who came down to love us in physical form is white.
Everything about kind of the history of Christianity from Europe to the U.S. has been built around whiteness. It's just in the DNA of the U.S. church. The church feels very white.
The phrase white Christianity, it's an idolatry. Think about it. White Christianity is an idolatry. And what do idols do in the Bible? Idols separate us from God.
How can a church immersed in white supremacy even begin to reconcile its ongoing legacy of exclusion, oppression, and violence? Is it even possible?
Reconciliation, take things that are out of balance and bring them back into balance. But the assumption is that there was a balance to begin with.
Reconciliation implies a prior healthy relationship, which we don't have in the United States. So you can really only speak of reconciliation in theological terms.
There is a white Protestant obsession with reconciliation. Yeah, like, stop. Stop. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen. When do we get to the reconciliation? When do I get to feel good? I don't know. I haven't felt good for 400 years historically in this country. I don't know when you get to feel good about this.
Some Christians have looked to foster unity by embracing the ideology of colorblindness, that we should look past skin color and view everyone as the same. But this is problematic at best.
Colorblindness at a sort of very simplistic level seems like what we should all embrace. The reality is, if I don't see someone's color who's not white, then I don't see the fact that they experience racism.
So I don't see color. That's not reconciliation. That's denial.
But to say we don't see skin color automatically makes me shake, because I'm like, am I invisible?
It basically means I see you as white. I see you like me. I've made you kind of into my own image. And it strips away all difference of culture.
And so people take up their experience and then just lay it over top of me.
Whiteness is going to create whiteness. And white supremacy, once it's embedded in the culture and in the culture of a church, it doesn't give you the tools to dismantle itself.
Try as the church might, we cannot whitewash this issue. White supremacy must be addressed directly, with all the hard truths exposed. Acknowledging our history and breaking down the systems that have upheld whiteness as the norm will be messy. It will be controversial. And above all, it will be painful.
When we talk about racial injustice, when we talk about brokenness in our society, when we talk about churches that are hurting, maybe some of us need to realize it's a funeral service and not a hospital visit. We can't go into the room and say, hey, we're going to just sing Kumbaya and join hands and say, I love you, man, and things are going to be okay. We've got to deal with the dead body that is in the room. Because to be blunt, most of the dead bodies in American history are black and brown and red bodies. And if we ignore the dead bodies and we don't lament over the dead bodies, we're just kind of playing the games of faith here. We're just pretending that things are okay when they're really not.
In the book of Lamentations, the Israelites, after turning away from God, were exiled into Babylon. They had lost everything. Yet God does not offer them hope of deliverance from their plight.
God doesn't call them to reclaim their strength and to go back and make Jerusalem great again. That's not the call. The call is enter into a space of lament.
Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Come before his presence. Come before his presence with singing.
But in the case of modern white Christianity, there seems to be an aversion to lamentation.
The church in America is lousy at engaging suffering and pain and lament. And most churches, when they get to a lament psalm, a psalm that talks about suffering, or a lament hymn in their liturgical reading or in their liturgical worship, they skip it. They drop it. We're talking about a pretty profound act of disobedience to God, to skip over the parts of the scriptures that make us uncomfortable.
Reality is there is no resurrection without crucifixion, and we're going to have to go to those painful places. We're going to have to acknowledge the things within us that have to die so that Christ can rise and live in and through us.
In exposing issues, it gets really bad because you're exposing this wound, and the first thing is recognizing that we have a wound. And I think we're in that kind of messiness right now, of saying we have a problem.
We have to let go of what we think is right. We have to let go of what we believe we know. We have to let go of the structures that we thought were the right way to worship God.
God calls us to stand together as a diverse body, to humbly and courageously name and renounce the root causes that divide us, confronting white supremacy at every turn. This is the lifelong commitment of racial justice and equity in our churches, our communities, and the world.
This stuff is not happening in a vacuum. The last 4 or 5 years is not some anomaly in human history. And there have been people who've been walking this path for a long time, and you need to find them, you need to listen to them, and you need to ask, what can I do? And sometimes what can I do is just shut up.
Please direct your attention again to the area behind home plate and welcome the Boys Choir of Harlem.
afraid. You should not be afraid today. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace.
after the service, there will be a time to share your feelings, reflections, and I hope you will join with that. Lisa will help lead that as we talk about what we have experienced. Let us now turn to this congregation's joys and concerns. Any prayer, joys, or concerns that you have. Let us pray together. Our Creator, throughout the heavens, hallowed be thy flame. In a trillion suns, thy will be done. In the tiniest cell, thy kingdom comes. Give us each day a bird in flight, a flower's perfume, a bright star's light, and lead us not on a path of greed, but teach us to tread lightly, take only what we need. For ours is the journey from ignorance to understanding, from separateness to oneness, together with you, the universe, the energy, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now let us in unison offer this prayer of thanksgiving for our offerings, our tithes, and also our very lives. Let us pray together. God, we need you. Carry us when we're weak. Hold us when we're tired. Love us when we cannot care anymore. And when we huddle, lonely and afraid, cover us with your strong, protective hands. Guard our sleep and wake us gently in the morning, rested and strong and ready to try again. Amen. Does anyone in the congregation have any announcements that you would like to share today?
I'll get off to it first. I put an announcement in the e-blast this week about Line 3 and a visit to Palisade. There is an effort to put together an ecumenical visit on May 15th. Mayflower Church and the UCC congregations in the Twin Cities, along with a couple of Lutheran congregations, are trying to put together a visit on May 15th. So again, in line with the announcement that I put in the e-blast, if you go take a look at that, I'll make sure it's in this week's e-blast as well. Please consider May 15th as an opportunity to visit Palisade. And the details about how we get there and everything are still being worked out. But I think if we can figure out a way to go up together, that would be wonderful. So again, contact me if you're interested, and by all means, anyone that's been there has come back and said that they have had a very valuable experience. Thanks.
I think this is a wonderful opportunity for me to share with the congregation that we have had an outstanding response to our ask for donations to the reparations fund. The congregation has responded with huge amounts of money that will allow us to do enormous beneficial work to our BIPOC brothers and sisters. And part of that opportunity is that we have reached out to our first 3 scholarship winners and asked them how they're doing and whether they're continuing their education with the goal in mind of extending their scholarship for another year. So this is the response I got from one of our students. Thank you for checking in. I'm doing well and my family is thankfully healthy and safe. It was a bit difficult to adjust to college at first. It was hard to meet other students my age because of the necessary COVID restrictions, mostly online. And I just felt out of place in the environment because my college is not very diverse, which is so unlike the Twin Cities. She's in college in Iowa. I was considering transferring to another school early in the fall, because I did not feel like I was accepted within the community, but was lucky to find some pre-pharmacy major friends after several weeks who were a great support system. I now really enjoy my college experience and am planning to continue my education. I've had the opportunity to volunteer by giving the athletic teams COVID tests and will be applying to pharmacy school over this summer, which is very exciting. Over the summer, I will be working and preparing for the upcoming interviews and application process. I am honored and humbled to be one of the recipients of the Compassionate Justice Scholarship and will never forget how kind and generous the Presbyterian Church of the Apostles has been to me. Thank you so much again, and hope you are healthy and doing well. So we received this, and I responded back and said, we're so happy that you're continuing your education, and we would like to extend your scholarship. She responded, thank you so much for renewing my scholarship. Words cannot describe how grateful I am to Presbyterian Church of the Apostles. It lifts so much weight off of my shoulders to know that I'll have some financial assistance with continuing my education. She says, thank you so much again for your generosity and this opportunity. I continue to be amazed by how kind, supportive, and generous the community at Presbyterian Church of the Apostles is. I am truly honored by the scholarship. Thank you. Heartwarming words.
And as you said, Marcia, what a beautiful thing to hear on this day. For the benediction, I have another piece of music for us before we move into our discussion. Arguably, the most famous civil rights era song is We Shall Overcome. And somewhere near the top of the list would be the one I'm going to play for you now. It is the song Blowing in the Wind. And we have singing, it's only a picture. You'll see the picture. There's not a video. It's an audio. It was at a concert, a Bob Dylan concert. With him are people you'll recognize, Joan Baez, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And I'm asking a favor here. You'll see a African-American man standing behind them. I've researched this on Google, trying to identify him. He looks familiar to me. So if any of you recognize him, I would love for you to text me or send me that information. But let us go into our discussion and out of worship with this benediction, with this blessing.
How many roads must the man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand?
So I had one text that said Harry Belafonte. Okay, at this point, Lisa, I'll turn it over to you, and not just you, but I think there's several members of the task force that are on today, and we will receive any of your thoughts or questions. Lisa, did you want to say anything to start or no?
Move it down.
Just something real quick. Again, the video is White Savior, Racism in the American Church. That was just a portion of it. It is about an hour-long video. You can watch it on Amazon. If you're a Prime member, you can get it for free. Yeah. And I have bought the video. So if anybody's interested in watching it with a DVD, let me know, and I'll put my information in the chat, and you can certainly borrow it.
Thank you too, Lisa, for that beautiful video.
Yeah, there are a total of 7 chapters in there, and I mean, we just scratched the surface of some of what it was talking about. There's one whole section on erasing Native voices, which is...
You did a beautiful job. It's a wonderful video.
Yeah, it was really, it's from 2019. So
okay.
One of the things that,
let me get that name of it.
One of the many things that I thought about as I watched was that we have asked the question so many times about being open to being an open, accepting church for all people.
Why?
People of color. Doesn't matter whether you're married, single, black, white, Asian, and how is it, do we need to totally relook at worship? Did I say I was resigning from worship chair?
The resignation not accepted.
I agree.
But I think
you can't do that in a pandemic, Emily. Sorry.
Oh. But I do think it gives that particular piece. I mean, everything was so amazing, but that particular piece, I thought, well, it's really such a broad thing to consider. And how is it that, we could see ourselves in those congregations?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when we go to Will and Andrea's house, there's a African-American church. I think it's an AME church right around the corner from them. And their worship services literally go on at least 2 hours.
Right.
And they're much louder than we are.
Mm-hmm.
In our little church. I mean, we love to sing at PCA, but I can say by comparison, we're whispering. And, I just think that's something to consider. There are so many things to consider. And I would invite some new perspectives onto Worship Council to address some of these issues, because that's one thing among a myriad of others that we can address.
I can say as a person of color that this church is more accepting than any I've ever seen. And I've been in a few churches. And it's not what you're doing. You guys are doing the right thing. It's just that there's not enough people doing it. I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time, because we get a good thing, we get a decision in the George Floyd case, but then we get 4 more shootings.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the legacy of Black people in this country. We get one little piece of candy, and that's supposed to satisfy us for the rest of our lives. And then the rest of our lives is being beat up and shot and arrested and persecuted. But when you get that one little thing, you're supposed to be happy about that. And you're supposed to rejoice. And if we don't rejoice over that, we're told, well, my goodness, all you people do is complain. Can't you wallow in something wonderful? You know what? We could, if we knew it would continue, but it doesn't. And we're right back to where we were. We're in Jim Crow. They love it so much, they have to reinvent it. Jim is in a suit and tie now. And we, despite having, I should say, we have chains. We're still in chains, folks. We may not have them physically on our bodies unless we're in a cop's presence, but we are still in chains. And it is so hard as a person of faith to cling to that hope. I'm a preacher's kid. I lived every single day of my life knowing what God did for me and that he loves me. And I believe that, I do with my whole heart, but I'm so tired. I'm just so tired. I don't want to wake up every day and wonder what's going to happen to me now. I don't want to wake up every day and wonder, gosh, am I going to be arrested for driving while black? Am I going to, we know the stories. And I just want to know when, because now I'm starting to feel really bad that I'm losing my faith. And it's like, oh my God, I can't lose that. I've lost everything else. I can't lose that. But faith is supported by action. Faith is brought real by evidence. What keeps us going? Right? What keeps us going? If you're on a diet, what keeps you going? The fact that you've lost a couple pounds. That gets you to the next thing. Right? But if you kept dieting and dieting and dieting, and all you did was gain weight, how much faith are you going to put in that diet after a while? And it is supposed to be the thing, and you do believe that. And you meet people, and you come to church and worship with wonderful, wonderful people that you consider your family and love to the ends of the earth. And then you wonder, why can't everybody be like that? Why can't we put the guns down? Why can't we put the stupid damn attitudes down? Why? Why is power the big thing? Why can't it be love? And all these, the reparations, the videos, the pilgrimage, it's all wonderful. It truly is. And I'm happy to see it. But dang, I would love to feel it. I don't want to just see it. I'm sick of going to the dance and having to sit in the corner. And I get to watch all my white friends have a ball. But I have to sit in the corner and watch. And I can go, I can do anything. It doesn't matter. I can go to Cub. I can go to the gas station. I leave my house. And it's not my reality. And even with our faith, people would say, well, you're believing in a Christ you've never seen. I have seen him. I've seen him in you people. I've seen evidence of him. I see him in Gwen every single time I'm in his presence. I see God everywhere except there. And I know he's there. I just can't feel it. And I know that our gifts are given to all of us. It's just whether or not you see them, whether you use them. They're given to you, but you need to use them. Okay, I'm using them as much as I possibly can. And I want to know when. And when I hear songs like, when will people come together and hold hands and be one people the way God intended? Never. Never. It's not going to happen. It'll be when we're dead. That's when we'll be together. And I find myself as a person of color just going through life, going through the motions, trying to do the best I can. And I am just praying for that day when I can see him. That's what I'm praying for. Not the next day, not, will the sun shine tomorrow? Will I get to work in my garden tomorrow? Will I get to hug my mom tomorrow? Maybe. But you know what I absolutely know is going to happen? I'll be persecuted tomorrow in some way, shape, or form. And what I would like to know is how do we keep that? How do you go one step forward and 12 steps back, and then 2 steps forward and 25 steps back? How does that, I don't know, I guess, how do we keep going with that? I want to keep going. I'm told to keep going. I will keep going. It's just, I have no faith anymore that it's going to change. None.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's bound to.
Not in our lifetime.
It's bound to change, maybe.
Estella, you've lived this longer than I have. How are you? What do you do? What do you tell yourself when you wake up in the morning? And
I have my little prayer book by my bed every night. I pray a lot. I said I have my little prayer book by my bed. And I'm so emotional. I can't do like you, get it out. But I've seen a lot and I've heard a lot. But I know in my heart, and I've experienced that there's only one God. And when nobody else is there, he's there with you. Sorry, I can't say as much as I would like to.
Well, Estella, we're very patient, and we want to hear what you have to say. Yeah. So don't worry about how long it takes you to say it.
But my father, when I heard him preach, I never will forget the sermon, "Yonder come my friend." And when I think of myself, all my life, I've just wanted a friend. And when I feel lonely or so alone, and I've been in situations, and I still live in situations, where people will just almost walk over you and don't speak. But when people do that to me, I'll make it my special effort to speak to that person, to get their attention and just speak to them. But being ignored most of your life. But then I think all I wanted was just a friend to talk to, a friend to visit with. And when my father preached that sermon, I don't know why it sticks with me. Yonder comes my friend at the end. He always had a friend. But when you think you don't have any friends and nobody's listening to you or with you, you always know that there's one God, and he's going to always be there with you. He's answered my prayers many times. That's why I truly believe that he will be there when nobody else is. And I pray for my children. I have one son, and he's away in Denver, Colorado. And I send messages. He doesn't call as often as I want him to. I just want to know how he's doing. But I leave messages with him just to watch your back. I say, watch the news and see what's going on. And just be careful. Don't cause any trouble. Usually he's a very friendly, outgoing person and very easy to get along with. But don't be talked into following the wrong crowd. You have a good head on your shoulders, so use it. And I pray for my kids every single night. And I thank the Lord every time I wake up in the morning and get up, that I'm able to get up and move around. When I think of all my friends, and so many of my friends in the nursing homes and places and in wheelchairs and that can't get out. That's why I like to visit the nursing homes. and take gifts and flowers to people I know there. I used to go every Sunday after church to visit Betty Walker when she was in the nursing home. And she'd always greet me with a smile and tell me how she appreciated it. Other people in the nursing home, we have two from our church. You all know who they are, Badley and Mary Peak. I took little gifts by there to them, and I get a call, and how happy they were to get just a little something, just to be remembered. And that makes me feel good, too. I love helping people. But that video was really outstanding, and thank you so much for the work you put into it. I wish more people could see it, and maybe one day we'll show it again. Thank you for listening.
I'm aware that coming to this service after last week, do you remember last week we had a service of lament? And we've had another service of lament today. We've had two of our beloved members, put their broken heart out in front for us to see. We've had one of our members say that she calls her son and tell him to watch his back. This is lament right here. And this is what God calls us to do it. Because if we're ever going to move from where we are, we have to experience the pain that we're all, and the tears that we're all experiencing right now.
Yeah.
I just can't believe the gift that Estella and Chris that you gave us, that you've given us. And I wish it would just move the whole world. I wish the whole world could be here and that it would just stop. And I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I'm so sorry it doesn't stop.
No. Oh, boyfriend. Oh. It's still unmuted, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It will come one day. It may not be in our lifetime, but one day it will come. Only the Lord knows.
There's hope that the younger generation looks at things differently.
I just want to wrap my arms around all of you right now. I am a wreck. Thank you for sharing, everybody. Thank you, Gwen, for this powerful service. Thank you, Lisa and the committee. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Goodbye for now.
And so I just want to say to myself and to everyone, I know I'm not the only one that's thinking, it's got a part of me going, okay, how can I fix this? So we don't do that. Lament, you stay with the lament. The lament is what gets into our bone marrow and causes big time changes. It's not something that we can just say, okay, so what are you going to say now to make us feel better before we go? Nothing. Nothing. This is the reality that our beloveds are living with, and we're a part of it. And we just have to keep digging and doing what we do and hopefully becoming a part of something much bigger.
I want to apologize for being so negative. I'm trying. I really am. It's just, it seems like every minute there's something else. And it just seems like we're constantly being pounded over the head with racism. And I really have a headache. That's all. I know that God is with us. I know that he will deliver us. I know that I am loved. I'm tired. I'm tired.
If you can't be safe with us, Chris, where can you be safe? Thank you for trusting us.
Yeah, we are a safe place to dump, and you're entitled. Okay? It's legit.
I can think of two things for us to pray for. First, to continue to pray for the anti-racism task force of this church, for Julie as our leader, that will continue to work to be some sort of healing force. And you know that this church has a future. And as we look towards that future, as we look towards the next situation after I leave, for it to be able to inform us as a congregation about the kind of person you want to call. And just being completely honest now, and to be open to the possibility of calling a person of color as your pastor. What would that mean? What would that do to the community and to the future? So think about that. I know one thing, and you've been in ministry 40 years, you have a right to express your opinion about this. You are an amazing congregation. You truly are. You are special.
You are an amazing minister. Very special.
Yes. We have a wonderful shepherd.
Amen.
Lead us. Amen.
I just wanted to share, I'm overhearing Bob on the phone talking to somebody, and it's probably away somebody, and he's explaining some of the background of what's been going on racially. And I think that's a task for everybody here who's white. We've got a lot of white associates. We need to let them know what's going on. We don't have to beat them over the head with it, but we certainly don't need to be quiet about it either.
Last week, before the verdict came down, we were trying to figure out how could we at Classical NPR provide something for listeners that would help them to be part of what was happening in our community. And we did program a few hours of all Black artists and composers. Maybe you heard that. And then we're rebroadcasting Lift Every Voice, a musical journey from sorrow to justice, tomorrow night at 7. It's also available on our website. It's a beautiful program created by Tess Vine, his co-host, and it talks about, quite frankly, a little bit of progress that's been made, at least in the world of choral music, and it talks about the history and then where we have made some progress. It's a pretty powerful program. So if you're looking for something that might feed your souls a little bit, I would highly recommend that program.
And you put it in the chat, but say it's on you're talking about it on Classical NPR or
yeah. So in the Twin Cities, that's at 99.5 FM, or if you're in one of our translator areas like Brainerd, you might have a different frequency, but somewhere down on the lower end of the dial. But it'll also be on our website. In fact, it still is. So you can find it on our new website.
I was just catching up with my journal from last year. I'm sort of one of those anal. And I was going through the month of August. And Gwen gave a sermon. It was called lament as a doorway to hope.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the takeaways that I had jotted down were, how long, O Lord?
Yes.
How long?
Mm-hmm.
If God is for us, who can be against us? And when we're desperate and when we're hopeless, we need to direct our anguish to God. Just like in the Psalms, if you go through those Psalms of lament that Gwen used last week, there's many more.
Mm-hmm.
And those psalmists poured their hearts out, probably stamped their feet and yelled. And
Yes.
other thing you said, Gwen, was lament is public protest. And we have a lot to protest right now. This virus, this racial virus, this
Right.
hatred.
We do. We do see progress. And I'd like to, here's an example. We voted in 2020. We voted. We came out and we voted, and we made a huge difference. And ever since then, they've been doing nothing but trying to figure out how to keep us from voting ever again.
And look how many years.
Stupid Black people, we can't let them direct who we get elected. So that's what I'm saying. 1 step forward, 5 steps back.
Well, Chris, one other thing. If you notice in the video, the mix of races between the protests in the 60s and the protests now is quite different.
Oh, yes.
So you've got more support than you used to have, even though you've got a lot of harassment that's coming out of the border. I really think these folks are scared spitless, and that's why they're doing this. They're terrified that they're going to lose. And I really think they will.
Yeah. That's the reason for oppression. That's why women are put down, because we're smarter than men and they know it. Sorry for all the males in the group. But that's why oppression happens, because we're scared of you taking over and being better than us. And we can't have that.
But you're not alone now. That's what's different.
That's true. And I
But
need to that.
to back you up, Chris, I keep coming back to 2040. That's the projected year that the white race will be in the minority. And this is why they're acting more desperate every year, is because every year it takes us 1 year closer to 2040. So it's easy to say as a white person, but I have very much hope that every year the movement will have more white faces intermingling with people of color. And with every year, there is more hope. And they are going to lose, because you can't fight the rising tide of population. You just can't. They're trying. But I think I have a lot of hope. Easy for me to say, I know.
Too.
But there is hope if you look hard.
Oh, yes.
There is.
We stand with you, ladies. We stand with you.
Yes.
I know how Betty Walker felt about this, because she and I were very close. But Betty never lost hope. Let that be a guiding light, especially those of you who knew Betty well.
Yes. Yes.
By the way, I have to share kind of a funny story. I now use a walker at home when I'm in a flare, because I fell outside on the cement and it was extremely traumatic. So my children said, okay, now you have to use that walker. Yes, dears. So my son-in-law, Andy, who knows how close Betty and I were, said to Stacy one night as they were chatting in bed, he said, I just thought of a name for your mother's walker. And she said, what? And he said, I think she should name her Walker Betty.
Betty Walker.
Betty.
So now my new best friend is my Walker, whose name is Betty Walker.
Betty
and I know Betty would get a high charge out of that one.
Can't you see her smiling? Yeah.
Yes, I can, Stella.
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking that while I do not feel up to it or very capable, that we should close with a prayer. Perhaps we'll do this. No pressure on. Oh, I can be the only one to pray. It's okay. But we'll start with silence, and if there's just one or two words, names of people, whatever, that you want to say as part of this larger prayer, and if no one speaks, it's okay, or whatever. When I sense that there's been enough time, then I'll say a prayer at the end for us to be able to end. This has been sacred. All worship is sacred, but today has been really, really sacred time.
Amen.
I will never forget it. So we enter in to a prayer time. I'm going to wait, so don't be anxious about silence. I'm probably going to wait a couple of minutes to give folks time to, if you want to say a sentence or a word, and when I'm pretty sure that that we're done, or that it's time, I'll end us with prayer. So let us go into a time of prayer.
God, for these wonderful, wonderful people. I see your hand in all of them, and I am so grateful. Thank you.
Dear Lord, give us all strength and give us hope. Hope for our young people for tomorrow, that a change is going to come, and only you know when it's going to be. But please give us strength from day to day and hope for tomorrow.
I give a prayer of thanks for all those who can be out in the streets, raising up every word of encouragement in a peaceful way that they can. Oh God, give us strength.
I give thanks for the indigenous community that joined the protest and also are leading the work to protect our waters and to protect our earth. I give thanks for them. Amen. And also give thanks for the young woman who was so courageous and filmed the murder of George Floyd.
Amen.
Amen.
Yes.
Without her, this awakening wouldn't be happening.
Amen, AJ.
Amen.
Amen.
God, your servant does not have the words. So I turn to one of your children to close this time. James Weldon Johnson. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring.
Amen.
Ring with the harmonies of liberty.
Amen.
Amen.
Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. In Christ's name. Amen.
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 I love you all, and I'll see you next Sunday.